Hello, and welcome to Birth Through the Veil. I'm Melissa Camrudin, and this week is a little different. I have David joining me to share the story of the birth of his little boy. Now, David is connected to a previous episode, to Carmel's birth story. Carmel shared her story last season, and I will link that episode in the show notes. And from Carmel's episode, I got the most feedback from people about wanting to hear more of her story, and especially wanting more about, maybe about her husband, because she just gushed about him. She made him sound so lovely, and he is so lovely, and he is here to share his perspective. So the same story, birth of baby Nesh, from a home birth father's perspective. It's the first one we've had. I think you're going to really like David's story. Tell me your feedback. Okay, as we start with birth stories, tell me about, where does your fathering journey begin?
Ooh, I guess, as soon as you said that, I feel like my fathering journey began with, like, my father fathering me. I didn't think of that. I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to say before this, but then as soon as you asked that, I was like, whoa. So yeah, I suppose, my father's always been a big example in my life, and his, like, tight-knit family, and the way his mother cared and was just such a matriarch, and the way he cared and was always there for us, made me always want to carry that torch down the line. And so when, you ask, where does my fathering journey start? I guess it's at a pretty young age, when I realized that I had a pretty great dad, and I wanted to, follow in those footsteps as a great dad. And I was always good with kids. Even as a kid, I was like the second oldest of like 15, maybe more cousins. And I always had patience and cared for, the younger ones. I think I was a pretty good older brother. I'm sure I had my flaws here and there, but I loved kids. And even in my 20s, in that, like, like if I saw a kid in a stroller, I was like, needed to make eye contact, needed to get that, that energy from them, because it is so innocent and good. And, I guess through my 20s and the vast majority of my 30s, Nesh was born a week before I turned 40. So I guess was just in a lifestyle that really wasn't conducive, like that maybe wasn't going to happen. I was in another marriage, and it was very clear that that wasn't going to be a thing, even though it wasn't, our agreement beforehand didn't necessarily agree on that. But I guess I should have known better. And so when there was a moment where I realized that if I was sacrificing so much for a relationship that wasn't, like, ever going to give back, that I needed to make a choice. And it's obviously a scary and huge choice to make, because I do take, marriage and vows seriously. So I was struggling with it, and one night I had a dream that I was holding a child in my parents' washroom from when I was growing up, and the child, like, turned into some beam of light, and it, like, found its way into my spine, and I woke up, and I was divorced like 24 hours later.
Wow.
It was just like, boom, this isn't, I can't. At the time, I had just started, like I just met Carmel. We worked in a school together, and I was like, okay, like this person is, I can't get her out of my head. I didn't know anything about her perspective on birthing, but as we got to know each other, her perspective was like so similar to mine. And I'd grown up, 20s and 30s, the birthing comes up, and I'm like, I'm like, oh my God, like home birthing is just so beautiful and so cool. And like, and then you'd say something like, as a guy, you'd say like, oh my, like what an honor, like what a privilege it is to give birth, to like go through that. And like, I think it's so beautiful. And maybe it was the people I was hanging out with. It's probably not the audience here, but I'd be very quickly shut down as a man saying that like birth can be beautiful, or
Wow.
very like, okay, that's enough. Like you don't have to do that, and so, and I was just like, okay, it's fine. Like doesn't change my perspective, and I always thought there was something like unfortunate about that. And I didn't quite understand it, but at the same time, I'm like, you maybe in another lifetime, I had some birthing experiences that were really beautiful, and that's where this perspective is coming from. But it's not welcome in these circles. So, and I guess like there was just, and like I knew people who were having birth and like, oh yeah, I'm giving birth on October 2nd at 2:30 p.m. I'm like, that's 3 months from now. How do you know that? Oh no, it's scheduled at, and I was just like, oh, okay. I don't want to say anything, but like that's kind of icky. So when hearing what Carmel's first experience was like and how she wanted another experience and that she felt she could have another experience like that, I was just like, oh my God, this is actually a possibility. So, yeah. And then we made the choice, and it didn't take long. Which was nice because that's not the case for most people, but neither of us thought that would be an issue. And yeah, next thing you know, like his name is coming to us in like these beautiful, magical ways. And just those 9 months were such an opportunity for me to like, it's so neat because if you really sit back as a man, like you kind of are handing over so much control. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, especially when you trust your partner so much, that you could just like hand it over and be like, yeah, this is going to be okay. This is going to be okay. We had, there were times where I'm like, man, should we really not do like any tests? Like, are we just going to like check a heartbeat and go with that? And we did, and it was fine. It was so fine. Carmel's like super healthy, so I never had any doubt in that regard. And then like even, I remember years ago seeing like something on like Life Channel or something where some documentary was following some hippie couple as, and the mother wanted her placenta to be like, encapsulated and stuff. And, I don't know why I was watching it with some friends, but they're like, what? I'm like, I don't know. That makes a lot of sense. They're like, come on. I'm like, think about it. Like it kind of makes sense. And always having this like, yeah, I'd like to do that. And Carmel was like, all in. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So, and now we have like the lady who did it for us, she, I can't remember if we knew it was part of the package, but these two beautiful impressions of,
oh yeah,
right? And they're up in his room.
Did you frame yours?
We did. We just framed them and put them up.
I still haven't framed ours.
Oh, yeah.
I have two beautiful impressions in a bookcase.
Amazing. Oh, cool. Yeah, we just put them up on his wall. So they're always looking at us
Mm-hmm.
when we put them to bed, and when our in-laws stay over, when my in-laws stay over, they're looking at them. But I love seeing them there. They're so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I remember like also being fascinated by like after she birthed the placenta and it was sitting in the bowl. I was like, I have to take a picture of this. This is like
Mm-hmm.
so beautiful and alive and like healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was so proud.
They're
So
so
proud of
cool.
her.
It looks like a
Yeah.
tree, right? Like it's like the tree of
Yeah.
life
Of
right
totally.
there.
And
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen some
amazing.
that are like, from, Western diets, what they look like, and they're just so
Mm-hmm.
like gray and like, ugh.
Yeah.
But hers was like beaming.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me so proud. Um, so that was cool. Uh,
Tell us,
yeah.
how did his
So,
name come to you? You
oh,
said
the
it.
story of his name. So,
Yeah.
Carmel is Israeli, speaks Hebrew. I was raised Jewish, and neither of us are like uber practicing religiously, but we have a connection to it. And I always, like I want Nesh to speak Hebrew and, her
Mm-hmm.
to feel like she, can give that to him. And she didn't have that with, growing up with her first one. So I just want to like make sure that happens. But we were on our honeymoon and she was like 6 months pregnant. We were in northern BC and we were kayaking. God bless her. She was kayaking 6 months pregnant.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we were just having so much trouble finding the name. And we were in the water, kind of shallow on this island. And we came around the corner and there was this eagle perched on a rock. In the, on the, it was low tide. So the rock was out. And so we kayaked between the rock and the eagle and the shore. And I just turned around and I looked at her and she knew exactly what I was thinking. And she said, Nesher. And that's eagle in Hebrew. And I was just like, that's perfect. My best friend's name is Aryeh, which is like lion in Hebrew. Dove means bear. So there is, it's not uncommon to name, have a Hebrew name after like, an animal like that. And I thought like, what perfect, like West Coast meets Hebrew. I also love the symbolism of an eagle, like in how it's like, it takes care of its family.
Yeah.
It has like a very like nuclear family. Um, and they almost, they represent what I feel, family means,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just like, it was perfect. So yeah. And then boy or girl, there was never any doubt it was going to be Nesher or Nesh for short
Mm-hmm.
now. But yeah. And he like fits it perfectly. It's so perfect for him.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So yeah,
That little
that's,
beam of light that you met.
yeah, holy
That's him.
smokes. He is like, after you just came to his first birthday and like I keep
Mm-hmm.
having people tell me like, oh my God, like my kid at 1 was not as sociable. Like if there was like 30 people around, it was too much for him. But he just like 4 or 5 hours of that, he was just in everyone's arms, then
Yeah, he
crawling
was
on the
so
ground playing with
happy.
his toys. So happy. He is just so happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even when like, we show emotion around him and like, maybe sadness or we're having a, hard time, he's just still so happy. And it just doesn't seem to faze him. I don't know. We'll see what that looks like and how that turns out when he grows up. But so far, he's just so much fun. He's so
Yeah.
much fun. And he's tells you exactly how he feels. I mean, even yesterday, he like fell trying to walk and hit his head, just above his eye. And like in
Oh,
30 seconds, like he broke skin. And in 30 seconds, he was fine. He was just like right back to himself. And I'm just like, oh, this kid's so resilient. So yeah. And back to the like birthing story, I guess. I mean, that's my journey as a
mm-hmm.
father, I guess, in a nutshell. And just feeling so overwhelmingly blessed.
What do you
to
think? Oh, sorry. Go.
no, just overwhelmingly blessed to have the opportunity with a partner like Carmel, and then with a kid like that. And then also, I can't overlook the fact that Carmel does have a 13-year-old that came into his life when he was 9, and that there was a while there where it was like, okay, that's going to be my fathering journey. And I actually was thinking about starting a podcast about like what it's like to be a stepfather and
Oh,
interviewing
you
others.
should do it.
I think I still should because I have a lot to learn. And teenage
Don't we
years
all?
are like super tough.
Yeah.
And we're getting rocked with them right now. And it just
Step parenting
requires,
is next level. It's a whole other skill set.
yeah.
It is. It's
Um,
amazing and
it's
it's hard,
it's really
as is
hard
all
because you
parenting. Yeah.
want to be the father, but like there's a journey to like wanting to be the father and then coming to the like realization that you aren't,
Mm-hmm.
and then going through the process of like, okay, what does that mean and what does that look like and how do I live in that and still like show up so strongly for him,
Yeah.
all while yeah, like I don't want to be there more for Nesh than I am for Malachi,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want it to be equal, but obviously, like there is like Nesh is mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to see it through from day one.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, to pretend like there isn't would be unfair. But yeah, and then he just started high school, so there's a whole
Mm-hmm.
laundry list of new complications and rejigging and understanding and figuring all that out. And
Yeah,
and
I think
yeah,
parenting's always like that. It's like you're like,
right.
oh, I figured out 1-year-olds, and then you're like, just wait
Mhm.
for tomorrow.
Yeah,
There'll be something
exactly.
else. And step
Yeah,
parenting to me feels like it's it's another layer. It's all of that, and then it's
yeah,
another layer of it that you have to play with, and it feels like it's a big exercise in like humbleness
sure.
and like showing up without expectations, which is really hard,
Yeah,
right? Like you see all the things that the parents see. Um, yeah, and it's this balance of like, but I'm not exactly that parent,
right.
but I am still a parenting figure. Yeah, it's a tough one to figure out.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, like last year I tried to coach his basketball team
Mm,
and like, his dad would drop him off and pick him up and I'm like the only dad leaving by himself.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it just like it sucked.
Yeah,
And I wanted it to be so great, but like he wasn't showing up the way I'd love him to show up. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'm still going to show up the way I want to show up.
mhm,
Right. But, and then like not being able to have just that time before or after a game, I felt like,
mhm.
like a volunteer,
Yeah,
and it was just tough for me. It was really
yeah,
tough. So I think I had to like, okay, check my expectations,
yeah.
check my like my overcommitment maybe, or I can't imagine it being easy for his dad to drop him off at a
Mhm.
game and see his stepdad coach the team, and that didn't even think about that when I
Yeah,
volunteered for it, but like how it'd be for Malachi to be in that
yeah.
situation.
Kind of have to make both the adults feel good.
Yeah, yeah,
I think kids
yeah,
be like that.
and
Yeah,
then no one feels good. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And if you're just trying to make everyone feel good, nobody's gonna feel good,
Hmm.
because just no one can be themselves. So,
Yeah.
anyways, just a lot of, and then also like sitting back and not being as in the trenches as maybe Carmel is,
Hmm.
um, because she's just like so attached,
Yeah.
and I'm attached in a very different way, right? Um, So it's and also having like a bit of an outside perspective,
Hmm.
right? Um, it's all
There's so much.
figuring it out.
so much there. I can see that like as a step parent, and then trying
Right.
to objectively watch my husband be a step parent as well.
Right.
And I see how like often the outside perspective is like correct. Like it is. Like you
Mm,
have more objectivity,
right.
but it doesn't matter in a way also, because
Sure.
parenting is like that love and connection you have with your child. And like I'm going to be softer with my child than my
Right.
husband thinks I should be. And he's
Sure.
sometimes softer with the children that he's raised all the way than I would
Right.
be, whereas I'm like,
Hold on
nip
a second.
that.
Yeah.
Like don't let that go
Right.
on.
That okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I see him also like my son's also a teenager who's like a pretty awesome teenager, but
Nice.
sometimes not.
Right.
Right. And he gets to watch that. And I can see he's just like, you know, like feeling real intense. I can tell when
Right.
my son's not being ideal and not treating me like he thinks he should. And it's like, so when do you step in and make that stop? But
Right.
also, you don't have that forever relationship with the child. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
we're all
that's
figuring
also a
out.
tough one when he doesn't like when he's treating his mom
Mhm.
poorly. Just like I get like like kind of defensive for her,
Yeah.
right? I'm like that can't. And God bless her, like she's always from day one, she's been like, I mean, it's easy for a mother to be like, "Hey, I'm the mom,
Mm.
and you're over here. I've gone 9 years, and so please,
Yeah.
like, let me parent my child." But she's always been like, "No, no, 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 no. I want you to do this with me," and that's
Mm.
like huge, right? Because
Mhm.
I have never felt like I don't have a say,
Mm.
right? Um, so I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm
Any
looking
of that
forward to your
means.
podcast now.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna
now,
like
yeah, now I feel like I gotta
keep
get it
checking
off the
in.
ground.
That's it.
I want to call it
I have
stepping
many
up.
things to learn.
I think that's a good name.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do it. Let's end this recording right now and you just
Yeah,
start
and just get on
recording
it. Yeah.
your first episode. Yes. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that. And then in relation, okay, I want to hear your birthing experience too. So
Yes.
I'm wondering, you talked about trusting intuition, and I think you mean Carmel's intuition, like
Yes.
trusting hers. And I'm interested to hear like how was that for you? How you came to that, being able to trust her knowing? So we're thinking like prenatally. Let's think like the kind of care she wants, the kind of things she doesn't
Right.
want or she's going to decline.
Like through like kind of medically, you mean, or like the kind of support from me that she's gonna want,
Oh,
or
I like all of that.
yeah, okay, okay. Well, I guess I had a unique um circumstance where I already got to know her as a parent, right? And
Yes.
because I think, you can know someone all you want, and then you have a child with them, and like, obviously that person's going to change um, in whatever way that is. Um, it's like you don't truly know someone until you fight them, to like quote the Matrix. But you don't truly know your partner until you have a child with them, right? But I
Yeah.
already had that. At least some perspective of what she was like. Her choice, even in her mid-20s in New York, not feeling like she had any power at all, still standing her
Mhm.
ground for,
Yeah.
I mean, like COVID got everyone researching vaccines and health and this and that. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people anyways.
Yeah.
But she didn't have that. She just had an instinct and was like, no, my child's not getting vaccinated. And even in New York, when you're doing it through like, Medicare, it's just like, okay, these are for him now. Like, no, 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 stop. And in that state, she was able to claim that power, right?
Mhm.
And for nothing more than a feeling. So
Yeah.
I trusted. That was an example of like, okay, no, I can trust her to like trust herself and her instincts when it comes to health, and when it comes to her body, and when it comes to her children's health, right? And I thought that was amazing, because
Yeah.
that even now takes courage. Even with everything, you still know people who like didn't get the COVID shot, but like, ooh, but I don't know, maybe these other ones. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to be responsible for my child getting sick in this way.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so hard to go against the mainstream. Like so
Yeah.
hard. I think we're community people. We're made for relationship, and like
Right.
we wanna be together. Like
Right.
ultimately, like I would like it if we were all doing the same thing. That would feel good for me.
That would
But then
be
when I
nice.
it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But so it's so hard. So what do you feel like even in terms of birthing? Like I mean, the mainstream for birth is like birth is hard and painful and traumatizing.
Right.
You should go to a hospital and have it managed by a doctor because that's the only way it's safe. Um, and like that's the story we're all told. How did you
Right.
like get away from? Because it seems
Carmel
like you
felt
started away
so
from that framework.
confident about it because of her first birth,
Mm,
and because even though it was in the hospital, it was for her, it was fun, it was exciting, and I mean, I don't know if I think she's called it easy, in its own way, right?
mhm,
Um, and even the nurses there, like, were like blown away by the how she performed her birth,
mhm,
and how quick and how strong she was through it. I think they had, like, all of the medical procedures lined up for her, and she
mhm.
needed. I mean, she was induced, but it was like at a checkup. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was a very strange. Like, the doctor's like, "Well, I got lunch, so let's get you in and out."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it could have been dangerous, but it wasn't. And she, even in that environment, she was just so able to tune in with her own body and have a beautiful birth. So
Mhm.
I never doubted her. Like, I just didn't
Yeah.
doubt her at all. And even the night of the birth, like, for 2 weeks before, she was waking me up at, all kinds of hours, and like, this is the one. And so when it actually came, um, it was amazing because I'm maybe she told this story in her
Yeah,
interview,
tell
but
us from your perspective.
there was some tension between her and Malachi, and she was like, she really wanted him to be there. We all wanted him to be there, and she was like, I don't want Nesh to come into the world where there's this tension between me and Malachi.
Mhm.
And I do, and she is convinced, and I believe that, like, Nesh read that and, like,
Mhm.
said, "Oh, I'll wait a little while." And we picked him up from his dad's on a Sunday night. We went for ramen, and we, like, things just came out, and like the honesty, and we were just able to, like, the air was cleared, and whatever was happening between her and Malachi relaxed. And he came out that night.
Hmm.
She woke up at 2 a.m. She's like, I think it's the night. I'm like, okay, like, just wake me up in a couple hours. I'm exhausted. Um, She went downstairs. She called a friend in Australia, so the time change worked out, and it just so happened to be her doula for her first birth.
Oh, right,
So
yes.
yeah, so she, like, had like a 2 hour conversation with her just as she was sitting in the kitchen. And then, there was some signs that things were starting to tick up a bit, and she came and woke me up. Was like, all right, let's do this. And it felt like 15 minutes for me. I think it was about 2 hours from the time I woke up to the time he was born.
Well,
Maybe.
that's quick.
Yeah, it was quick. Um, but it was fast. I was always like,
Mhm.
you know, you could take your time. It doesn't have to be so fast. I kind of want to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, that's a weird thing to say because I'm sure the mom just wants it to happen.
I've heard women say that as well in fast, precipitous births like that, where they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it was like I couldn't get into the
Oh,
birthy, juicy vibes." So that is
right.
something I've heard women experience
Right.
as
Okay.
well.
Okay. So that's good because I'm always so,
Mhm.
like, hesitant
Yeah.
to, but,
Yeah.
um, and I could tell that she was starting to slip into, I don't know if you call it this, but, like, the portal, right?
Mhm.
And it was maybe 3, 4 in the morning, so I guess it was 2.5 hours. But she wanted a cold towel, so I got her that, and then I could tell things were picking up. We had this ball, and I had a feeling she wouldn't want the ball because it's plastic, and I can't, like, she doesn't like touching plastic on a
Yeah.
good day. So she, like, touched the ball. I was like, "Get this thing away from me!" So I threw it out of the room, and then she needed to go to the bathroom, and that's when, like, when she couldn't. when it was so hard for her to get off the toilet, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
we are there.
Mhm.
And she was always like, no, you don't have to call the midwife and the doula. It's okay. Like, just like, I don't want to bother them. I'm like, I don't think it's bothering them. But so even up in, anyways, back to the toilet. So I had to like pick her up out of the washroom and help her back to the bed, which was like, okay, this is like, there's some, I guess, like, part of me was like, there's some opportunity for danger here, but like, I trust all of this, and I've trusted all of this all the way up until now. There's no way I'm going to like invite that into the room.
Mm.
Like like vocally express that, like, I think there's like a chance of danger here,
Yeah.
because I had spent all this time trusting her, right? So why
Mm.
stop now? Brought her back into the bedroom, and then I just remember, like, she wanted me to be there, but she also like she very clearly, like, I couldn't tell where to touch her, right?
Mm.
Her body was just like doing its thing, and I felt like if I touched her here, if I touched her there, it was just a way to like kind of like contain whatever her body wanted to
Mhm.
do, and I did not want to contain anything. Right? I just wanted her to um and but at one, and so I saw her legs. It wasn't like she was pushing, it was like she was expanding, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Cool.
And so, and her voice, she's a, voice and movement teacher. So like her voice was very expressive. And we had a window open enough that like the neighbors across the street woke up, and they, the woman used to be a doula. So beautifully, they woke up, and I think that she told this, but like brought a candle outside, and like in
Oh.
mid-November, like came, took it like their blankets, sat outside, brought a candle, and listened and watched like as the doula and the midwife came into the room, and like
Oh, lovely.
so that was really cool. We didn't know that till afterwards, but so I just I placed myself so her feet could push into my body. I was just kind of on my knees, and her feet were just pushing into my body. And I was like, I think this is where I need to be until
Mm.
something tells me it needs to change. Um, for whatever reason, I felt the overwhelming need to rip off my shirt at one point, which is funny because you like kind of see it in like movies or like stuff where the man like rips off their shirt, and it was like, now I'm seeing it and
It's
like kind of
primal.
parrot. Yeah, I guess so. Or maybe I just wanted her foot to touch skin. I don't know,
Mhm.
but it happened. And so we called the midwife and the doula at first, and they're like, okay, like we'll start getting ready. We'll start packing our bags. And then about maybe 15 minutes later, I was like, hun, I think, like, I started timing her contractions, and they were like a minute apart. I was like, I think we're pretty close on. She's like, no, we're not quite there yet. I'm like, oh, just in case, I know the midwife lives in North Van, so, it's a 20-minute drive. Just in case, and I called again, and they were both like, they just heard Carmel screaming, and they're like, we'll be right
Yeah.
there. Bye. Like they could hear
Mhm.
from her voice that like it was time. So they rushed over. I remember at one point, she needed me to be in two places at once. She
Mhm.
needed me to be there with her, and she also needed me to get her like cool down her towel again. And I was like, can't be both.
Yeah.
So I waited for like a contraction to finish because I could tell that she wasn't like all there for
Yeah.
me to like slip away, get the towel. I'm like, oh, this is a moment where I'm like, I could see why a team is
Yeah.
nice, you know?
Yeah.
And then so I did that. She needed the towel. She loved the towel, chewing the towel, putting it on her head, pushing against me with her feet. And but I could never get her underwear off.
Mm.
It was so funny. I couldn't get her underwear off. And then Carissa, the doula, she came in and just like glided right past my dog that barks like a maniac, and came into the room and was like, okay. And she just like glided towards her. And like in this like beautiful woman to woman way that like in my best moment, I could have never provided for Carmel, because I would have just been like, you got this. Come on. Yeah.
Power,
Yeah.
more.
Go. And
The basketball coach.
Exactly. And she just like glided and she was like, yes. Mm-hmm. You got this. I was just like, yeah, that's why. That I get it now. And so she did that, and then we kind of put her on her side, and she just like was there for her. And I asked Carissa, and the midwife's still not here, and I asked Carissa, I was like I think it's soon. Should we take off her underwear? And she's like, she'll let you know. I'm like, yeah, but like she kind of, I just don't know if she has like the wherewithal to let us know.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, a baby was never born with underwear on. I was like, that's true. That's probably true. But then the next contraction, I could see her just like doing this, like pushing towards her mid region. And I'm like, I think that's her trying to tell us to take the underwear off. So I like grabbed the underwear, took them off. There was also something else there, which at first I'm like, no, that's something else. So I like ran to the bathroom, grabbed some toilet paper, grabbed it, tossed it on the ground. I got a 20-year-old cat that poops in the house sometimes that doesn't, so I'm not, that's fine. It's whatever. And then I turn back and like, he's there. Like, it was so fast.
Yeah.
Like his head, and then I'm like, I think he's crowning. Like by the time I had her pants off or her underwear off, I swear I looked back, picked up the stuff and threw it on and then he was there. Like, I don't know the exact, but it was so fast. I remember saying, I think that's his head. And then I blinked and he was on the bed.
Wow.
And it was so cool. And yeah, it was thinking back, it was like just over a year ago. And I'm just like, wow. It was, easily the best moment of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Easily the moment my life changed. And I've never been prouder of her and more in awe of like what life can be and what like the strength of a woman is. I think it's so powerful and so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And and then from there, like he came out and the sun was just starting to peak, like not peak, but like there just started to be sunlight in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And then from then until about an hour later where she birthed the placenta, like at that point, like the sun had like risen, but it was like this perfect, it was like, I don't know how I'm like referencing the Matrix again here, but it was like the end of the third Matrix where there's like just this perfect sunrise and it like represents like the rebirth of everything. That's what it was to me. And I'll never forget holding him for the first time, finding out he was a boy.
Yeah.
And those first few days where we didn't go anywhere. And she did such a good job of before that, like cooking like 40 days worth of food, all the bone broth you can possibly imagine. And then of course, because the industry we're in is kind of cruel, like I had to be in Kelowna for 2 weeks, like 10 days after he was born,
Oh.
and just like coming home on weekends, like in snowstorms, did not care. But yeah, she was amazing, and she did it all with strength and grace and love and like certainty. There was never any doubt.
Mm.
Um, yeah. And like just after he came out, Malachi came into the room and the midwife came into the room, and she was awesome. She just kind of sat back and just filled out some forms and was never like, was very glad to have it be the way we wanted it. Was so supportive of that, which was amazing. We interviewed 2 different midwives, and could tell that like I don't think this one is going to be as supportive and into our choices as we'd like her to be. So yeah, it was all around. Like she could have done it on her own.
Yeah.
She really could have done it on her own. Like I'd like to say she needed me, but she didn't. Maybe to get off the toilet, but
Yeah,
she could have done
helpful.
it. You know what I mean? I'm sure that I came in handy there. But she could have done it without the towel, and yeah. But it
Yeah, when you
was
think of our cultural thought of someone needs to deliver the baby, and
right.
like
I'm
it's
pretty
not.
sure
It's
she
like,
was the
but
one
like,
delivering it.
who does it actually? Like,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, she was the one
yeah,
delivering it, like
yeah.
through and through. Um, yeah, so that I guess is our story or my story around becoming a father, and
Yeah.
it's so cool. It's the best.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, if you were to summarize a little bit, which you kind of have, but like your role, like what was your role in all of it? Like even in like the prenatal care, in the birth, in the postpartum. Did you find, yeah, was it hard
Support.
to find support?
Support. And I remember being I remember someone telling me, like another um, guy telling me like how I guess it's probably not the best word, but and maybe not the word he used, but like unimportant he felt throughout the
Mm,
whole process of like prenatal.
mhm,
Um, and I did, like if I tried or when I did say something at like a prenatal care, it was like, I did feel like, mm-hmm, and back to mom,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And so I did feel like, okay, I'm unimportant is like such a crappy word to use and such a like a
mhm,
woe is me kind of words, and it's not how I felt, but I did feel like, this is not my show, and I'm
mhm,
okay with that.
mhm,
Um and what she needs and what our child needs is me to sit back and support and to just be someone that can show up for her, you know? Um Yeah, so that I understood where he was coming from, but
mhm,
I did think I was like, "No, I don't wanna like, I'm gonna make the choice to not feel unimportant. I'm gonna make the choice to find my value where it helps."
mhm. And
Um,
what was your value in?
I think
Where
just
was it?
yeah, just being there for her and just supporting
Mhm,
her and trusting her instincts and trusting her body and trusting that, like, she actually is the strong, incredible, powerful woman that I know her to be,
mhm.
right? And like, it's one thing to like, I know that, but it's another thing to just sit back and allow it to be, right?
Yes.
And so I think it helped me um, hear that perspective from another man because it gave me time to think about what that meant and not just get wrapped up in like, whoa, where am I in all this? Right? Because I think someone who feels so like, because I do want to be involved, right? And I do want to be there, and I don't want to just take a back seat. You know, it's my child too, and that's a process that I want to live through, right? And respect how I want to show up for it and be a part of it, but understanding where it helps and where it doesn't, you know? So I didn't want to be I didn't want to insert myself because I thought because this was important to me too, right? I wanted to find where I could be most valuable.
Yeah.
And just live in that.
And that's such a valuable role. Like, it's so empowering. I don't know. I hate that word actually. And I can't think of a better one. But
I've had a few of those moments today. So
yeah. When your partner, like, that is a gift. That's not nothing. When your partner trusts you and is like, can reflect back to you what you know. But birth is scary. Even like I've done, like each time I've done it, it's still like, whoa, like it's big. It's big. And like the whole like ushering a soul through your body is a really big deal. And to have a partner who, it's not really a backseat. It's different. It's not like overt control. It's not any of those things. But to be able to reflect back to me what I already know is like, it's magic.
Yeah.
It's such an important role. Yeah, it's like the tender of the edges, the holding of the space, all of those things.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, there is something to just letting go and trusting and listening and supporting, which, you know, I'm probably I'm certain I can use some improvement there when, you know, in other aspects of life. But when it came to that, it was just, I don't know, it made it all probably a lot easier. Yeah. And maybe I should go back to that, you know, that state and find it in other places in my life. So
yeah, maybe there's so much to be learned from birth, eh? Of like, like all the things that birth actually requires you to do well. Like you must do it well. In other scenarios in life, it's not as obvious, but there's an invitation for that same energy.
Yeah. I think I'm just having a little bit of a aha moment.
I can.
Like, oh no, I am capable of that.
Oh yeah. It's in
me. It's in me. I learned that, and then I didn't apply it to other things in my life. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
I love that.
No, it's really it's an honor to to be the first. I hope there's more. But yeah, thank you for having me. So
thank
much.
you. Tell me, how can people contact you if they'd like to, and what sort of, I know you have offerings out in the world. You have things you do.
Carmel and I run a business out of our garage here. It's called Garage Tapes. We're both actors in film and television. And we coach audition tapings and we teach classes. I do some of the voiceover classes. I've been doing voiceover for a long time. It's always been what I wanted to do. So feel very blessed to have that as my career. And you can find me, I guess, on Instagram. It's at It's David Attar. And you can find us, our business at garagetapes.com and at _garage_tapes. I think there's another underscore on Instagram for that. And I mean, you can find us. We're here and there, and you can find us on IMDb if you want to watch our movies and stuff. But we're here and there. We've been so privileged to be cast in several episodes of television and movies together, both as a couple. And we were in an episode of The Good Doctor where she was cast as, I was cast as a rabbi who was marrying her off to an old man, so who was converting to Judaism just before she passed away. So when Nesh was 2 years old, I married her off to another man, which was kind of strange, very strange. And then in another episode of, I can't remember the name of it right now, Alert, that still hasn't come out, but I play her, this is the best way to do this. My wife is her lesbian lover. So,
oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and then she's been kidnapped. So that we don't always play husband and wife, but but we have had the opportunity, and Nesh gets to come to set and make everyone very happy. He's so happy on set. Like, it's just like
he's so cute and so happy.
He's so, it's crazy. Like, in between takes, he's just like, somehow knows when to be quiet when it's rolling. I mean, we try to keep him away from that, but there has been moments where, Carmel's dressed in a Santa costume and he's just like, what? Watching her come out of a chimney. So cute. So, that's where you can find us. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can head to Instagram and birth.throughtheveil to see birth pictures or just pictures from each episode. The show notes have links and more ways to connect, along with the link to submit your birth story. I would love to hear it. New episodes of Through the Veil come out every other Tuesday. You can follow, subscribe, share, rate, and review this podcast to be in support. Until next time.